Everyone, we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Give everybody a chance to get in. All right, it's 2 minutes past the hour and we're going to get started. Thanks everybody for joining today before the big July 4th week. We are excited to talk about 72-hour response plans for zero-day CVEs and how Bacon Unlimited helps you achieve new goals in that area. So we'll just get right into it. And Dave, why don't we start out with introductions? My name is John Marcato, co-founder and CTO of Bacon Unlimited. And joining me today, Dave Adekoya, one of our senior engineers, and also the greatest demo guy, the west of anywhere. Dave, thanks for joining me.
Always happy to be here.
Fantastico. All right, well, we'll do a little housekeeping and then I'll give a little high level and then we'll jump into a demo. So this is a 30-minute webinar. We try to keep it to about 20-25 minutes to give people a sense for these things, but also give them a little time at the end of the half hour to fill out the survey and grab a glass of water, whatever they need to do. So just a quick overview of the GoToWebinar platform. There's a little box in your top right side of your screen right now, and there's essentially little modules in there, little drop downs. You can ask questions. There'll be a couple of polls that are going to pop up in your face, and if you answer those quickly, it'll move along quickly. Otherwise, it takes about 30 seconds. And then at the end, there'll be a survey to fill out. We'll try to answer your questions in line if you ask them during the webinar. And without further ado, I think we'll kind of move on from there. We will be giving out T-shirts also for those people who want them. So if you do want one, we'll be following up with you and find out your size and how to ship it to you. So with that, we'll kind of get going here. What do we mean when we're talking about a 72-hour response plan? Essentially, what we're talking about is the fact that you need to respond very, very quickly, and you need to have a very well-designed plan in this day and age. And this is the reason what you're looking at on the screen here. Exploitation speed of these vulnerabilities has advanced massively. So the average time used to be 63 days. Now it's 5 days. So that's the average time. It doesn't mean it can't happen faster than that. So we really, really want to help you devise a way to get rid of the scariest vulnerabilities and things in the shortest amount of time. So that's kind of what this plan concept is all about. And Dave, if you want to advance to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what the high level of that is, and then I'll get into each of the sort of sections of it. I think we might have a poll first. Yeah, there we go. First poll is up. Lane, if you want to launch that, we'll see what people's current experience is in dealing with these. All right, how confident are you in responding to a zero-day CVE vulnerability? Most people don't say very confident, but every once in a while you see people that are like, we've got the best plan you've ever seen. You stop vulnerabilities before they even exist. All
Yeah,
right,
turn the computer off, bury it, hide it. Yeah.
we've got somewhat confidence. So we've got people here that, are obviously doing a lot to work on this, and that is good news. So pretty much unanimous there with a sort of somewhat confidence, and you're right to be always looking at it. You're right to always be improving because it changes so fast. The world of or the landscape, as people say all too often, of these kinds of threats, it just changes really quickly. So we always have to be adapting to it. So with that, this is kind of the breakdown of a good plan. You can probably look up some template plans out there, but in the beginning, you really need to assess and prioritize. A lot of people skip this step. They start fixing things and they don't realize they might have missed things that should be prioritized a lot more. And then one of the things everyone thinks is everything's just a patch. Well, just upgrade Chrome, just update Windows, whatever it is. And sometimes that is the fix, and it's quite easy comparatively when that's the case. But oftentimes that's not true. And oftentimes what you have to do is you have to make trade-offs. So hardening systems can mean removing software. If people are using Chrome and Chrome is vulnerable and they didn't come out with a fix, which is extremely rare for Google, they tend to be quite quick on those sort of things. But if they didn't, could your company get by using a different browser? Could you use Firefox or Edge or maybe an enterprise browser like Island, so that you can mitigate that problem even if there's not a fix from the original publisher of the software? Those are the kinds of things you want to think about. And then if there is patching that needs to be done, how do you test that and then get it out in scale very, very quickly? So that's kind of the third sector there. And then the fourth is verifying and reporting. And this is the one I think people skip a lot because they're like, I fixed it, so we're fine. Well, verifying and reporting is pretty important because sometimes people miss that an advanced persistent threat's already made its way into the environment. It's already done something to weaken other pillars in the environment. And then also by reporting, right, you're making it visible what you've done and making it clear to management that it's valuable to spend money on tools and training that prevent these things from happening. So it's important to keep things above that line of visibility, and so reporting is crucial. So we'll dig into each of these sections real quickly here if you want to advance the slide there, Dave. What do we mean by assess and prioritize? Well, ask yourself these questions, right? Are you exposed? How urgent is it? And which systems matter most? That's the one I think people need to focus on often is, it's easy if you're in a web server environment, right? You go, well, my production web servers are my most important thing. They make money. They make some certain amount of money per minute or per hour or something like that. And you need to do that. But oftentimes there are other kinds of priorities in businesses, like what systems would have patient information in a healthcare environment, or which are the financial computers, like C-level employees and financial focused employees that might get exploited and then later utilized for an advanced phishing attack where they trick you into sending money to a foreign bank or something like that. So that question set is really, really important. You can advance that, Dave. And then when we get into the hardening of systems, as I kind of mentioned before, locking down, disabling unnecessary services, removing software that you don't need, and enforcing least privilege access. So if you're not sort of in a zero trust mindset today, looking at, why is everything open in this direction or that direction? And it's not just about what's open through a firewall or the internet or something. What about east, west? What about from apps that could get on your computer? People always talk about things like TikTok or something like that and say, well, it's like a big, well-known company. What could they possibly be doing? And then when you actually find out what they're doing, they're just pilfering an amazing amount of data, and that data can get leaked. They could use it. I don't think that most businesses are under attack of the Chinese government, but many are and have had their data and intellectual property taken. So all of these things kind of matter in dealing with that, and I highly recommend looking into least privilege concepts if you are not today familiar. So that's kind of the next step. And Dave, you can advance the next one there. And patching the one thing that people forget about patching is you need to be able to do it on all your systems. So in the case of Bacon, which manages endpoints, we're talking about Mac, Windows, Linux, we're talking about iOS devices, and we're talking about servers and workstations. And then we're also talking about the third-party software. So not just the OSs, but any third-party piece of software can be quickly and easily or even automatically updated by Bacon. And so it's really, really important to do that sort of thing. And it's really important to know the status of your machine. Does it have those things? And does it require a reboot to kind of fully get through what's happening? Probably the biggest one here that I think is important is that when you're patching, you want to have a good interactive experience with end users. So vulnerabilities are going to come up from time to time, and the business needs to continue to operate. And that means that your end users need to have some way to participate in this fixing process. And the best way to do that is to have an interactive service that pops up in their face and says, hey, I know you're probably busy, but by tonight at 5 p.m., this computer needs to be rebooted. So you can do it now. You can schedule a time. There's a little scheduling function there. Or you can defer this right now. Maybe you're presenting in the middle of a Zoom conference right now and you really can't be bothered and need to do this in an hour. That's completely understandable. But most people, by 5 o'clock that day would be able to reboot and make sure that whatever finalizing changes need to happen on that computer are going to happen. So those are the things that we see as kind of trying to get that down to that 72-hour turnaround time or less, right? I mean, it's better if you can do 12 hours or 24 hours, but and depending on the severity of the problem, usually almost anything can be resolved in 72 hours. I have seen a few situations with older systems, basically a Windows-based system that ran a storage appliance and had, there was 40 or 50 of these storage appliances in pretty large media company, and they weren't going to be able to turn these things off. But what they were able to do was put on advanced tracking in their firewalls. They were able to essentially mitigate the risk, even though they couldn't rip out the devices or get rid of the content that was on those devices. And it took some 6 months to do that migration. They were actually able to do a large amount of risk mitigation in 72 hours. So there's always a lot that you can do if you plan well. And then the last part that's on this slide is verification and reporting. Verifying that your information has changed, and in other words, the configurations of your machines are now the way they need to be, is something that you can do with Bacon because it's got a huge amount of data about the inventory of hardware and software on your systems. It's got logging, so you know if the jobs are, which happen, essentially right away. You can tell exactly what's occurred. You can see all the machines where people have just rebooted quickly and the ones that are still pending and haven't been rebooted. So there's just a lot of visibility you get there for the verification side of it. And then the reporting, we've got real-time graphs that can be updated and filtered in such ways that you can get exactly the data you need. Are this specific vulnerability only? How many machines is it left on? Are those machines still online? Have they been online? All this data that will give you a clear picture of how you're doing at mitigating these risks is something that you can get in there. And to show this off a little bit, Dave's going to take over now, and he's going to give a little bit of a demo on how you would do some of this in Bacon. And we'll talk kind of at the end when he's done here about what you can do next if this looks interesting to you. So I'll hand it off to you, Dave, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Alrighty. So yeah, let's go ahead and get logged into Bacon, and we'll do a live demo. Alrighty, so for this demo, I'm going to kind of focus on the Windows side since that tends to be the OS that we're all relatively familiar with, but keep in mind that Bacon is cross-platform, so we have solutions for everyone. So starting off with, if we kind of follow our model of assess, harden, patch, and verify, for the assess side, the first thing I want to do is figure out what CVEs I have and what state my machines are in. So in Bacon, what I can do is go to vulnerabilities here, and I have two options. I have CVE, and I have Tenable. So we have Tenable integration, where it'll pull all the vulnerabilities from Tenable for the machines that match in your Bacon instance. But for this one, I'm going to use CVE, which is something our agent does natively. So all these CVEs are essentially checked against the NIST database. And so if you wanted to look up a specific CVE, let's say you read an article, a blog post, that kind of thing, that lists a CVE by name, you can do so. Or if you just want to get more information, you can actually click on these and it'll lead you to the CVE information from NIST. So kind of step one is figuring out what we're doing, what's vulnerable, what we need to do about it. Now on that, we can also, outside of just looking at the CVEs, we can do this with more context. Let's say CVEs, but applied to our actual endpoints. So here, we can see how resolved or how much work we have to do to resolve all these CVEs. Give us a second here, just loading everything in. And you'll see kind of like a red and green bar right here. So 41% remediated, and then we have a lot of work to do here. And so now it'll go through and tell you by CVE, in this case, the software, what's vulnerable and how vulnerable your environment is to it based on who has or has not had the issue resolved. So again, very simple to search for specific software here. I'm sure if I type in Chrome, there's some of those in there from Google Chrome, as well as if you want to type in the actual CVE number, you can do that as well. Now over here on the endpoints tab, this lets you figure out which of your endpoints are vulnerable. So here I'm thinking things like web servers, anything that provides any external services, holds sensitive data. Those are all the things I'm going to want to tackle first. We can even see by severity here. So maybe you have more severe CVEs on some machines versus others. Those are all available to you here. And then one thing to keep in mind is with Bacon, most of these tables, like this one, can be exported into a spreadsheet. So it makes it easy to kind of like get a spreadsheet and then start checking off down the list as you handle these issues. Now we'll return back to the screen a little bit where I show you like the verify step, but let's move on to the harden side. So in Bacon, we're actually able to do this a couple ways. Some of this can be things like automated patching. So you can have your critical and security patches install on a regular schedule automatically. You can also use our states and profiles. We'll take a little bit of a peek at that in a second here. The states and profiles allow you to set configurations, change config files, all that kind of stuff. Then we also have, of course, our files and bundles. So if you just had like a quick script you wanted to push out to secure environment, you could do that as well. Now, when it comes to actually fixing things, we go down to our remediator. And in this tool here, we're going to see, I just kind of pre-filtered this. We're going to look at the CVEs that are available in my environment to resolve. So what happens here is we're going to be able to use the patches side of things here to handle everything that your OS patching mechanism handles. So in the case of Windows, that's just Windows updates. But for something like Linux, it's actually going through your package manager. So for Linux, all the different applications you have installed are going to show up here, like you see less right there. And all you have to do to fix these is to go to Actions and Install. Once I go here, it'll actually auto-select the machines that are vulnerable. In this case, I only have 2 machines that need this patch. And all I have to do is select and push out. As John said, for the user interactive portion, if you use this schedule with deadline feature, this will allow you to set a deadline for the user to install and reboot. And it'll pop up and kind of work on their schedule. So that way you can get all the stuff that you need done, set a deadline for when Bacon will do it automatically on their behalf, but allow them to schedule a better time for them to do that. I mean, I'm doing a webinar right now. I don't want to have a Windows update go through and make me reboot, but an hour, yeah, I've got time. Next up, we have configuration. This is where we can do things that aren't just patching. So any kind of config changes, let's say a registry key, maybe changing service configuration, anything you'd use a script for in the system, you can likely do with a state. So if I look at this one here for fixing a remote execution vulnerability, what this will do is actually figure out your CPU architecture and apply different fixes to your registry keys here. So the nice thing here is that this is something that's automatic as far as generating this in Bacon. Essentially, your server will check our list of CVEs with these fixes and pull those down. But keep in mind, this is a Bacon state. You can actually do this on your own as well. So if you have certain fixes and you want to do it right away, you can actually go in the states and then create these on your own. But through the remediation feature, it's like a really quick apply where I can just go to Actions, Apply, and then again, it pre-selects the machine that needs it, or I can just apply to all of them if I want the config to go out entirely to all the machines. Next up, I have package. So in the case of Windows, it doesn't have a built-in package manager. And so instead of being able to, let's say, update 7-zip or Chrome through the patches side, we do it through package here. This will go through and find all the applications that have matching CVEs. You can see this one matched on CVEs, this one matched on some tenable plugins and probably additional CVEs as well. And like before, all you'd have to do is go to Actions, in this case, Upgrade. Then it presents you with a very similar screen. You can go through and push out a new Firefox to everyone. Now, keep in mind, for some of these things, we could have had these automated through Bacon's scheduling system, where let's say every Friday it tries to give you the latest Firefox or keep certain applications up to date in the maintenance window. Those are always options for you, but this is what the manual view looks like. Then lastly, we have actions. This is kind of a catch-all. So if I can't find a way to put it into one of these three columns, it'll go into actions. And so here, I kind of pre-filter this a little bit. You'll see severity and CISA exploited. These are kind of the ways that I start parsing through this list. Essentially, we've already taken care of the easy stuff, the 2-click fixes. Now this is where maybe your experience with your environment is going to come in handy, or it's just things we couldn't match otherwise. So again, a lot of application updates. If I remove this severity counter here, I know Tenable also gives you a lot of best practice stuff. And so you can go through and make sure that you don't have like open shares and the services are configured properly. And so you basically have like a left to right way to solve everything you need to while saving as much time as possible. So once we've done the work, the next step is to verify what we've done. So for that, I can actually go back to compliance here, and keep in mind these features for Tenable, same exact UI, it's just where the data is coming from. So over here for compliance, what I'm able to do, if I go to history, this is going to show me all the vulnerabilities and the date that Bacon detected that vulnerability and when it was remediated. So if we were doing any fixing in here, we can just change this around. Also, note up here, we have a date range. So you can actually specify the date or possibly your audit window that you're pulling this data back from. Now, on the patching side, not only can you see it by CVE, but I could also get a report of what patches were installed. So if I go over here to patch and to history, similar view. Keep in mind, again, these can be exported. Here I can actually see what patches were installed, what machines they're installed on, and the time it was available and the time it was actually installed. So there we go, right there. So here we have all the information you need so we can both help you harden your environment, actually patch and remediate different issues, and then report back on it. So John, that's what I had for my demo. Did you have any other features you wanted to highlight?
I think probably the only thing I wanted to say on features is really where Bacon has shifted as it's become very mature and very feature rich is towards just continual stability improvements and towards agent rollout simplicity. So a lot of what we're focused on right now is making sure that getting the tool up and in your environment is very, very fast, and that when you need to upgrade agents, that you can do that either with no clicks or just a couple of clicks. And so that's what's been coming out lately. And it just makes all of these other features much easier when you can get the latest stuff in Bacon more easily. So that's kind of our focus this summer. We've done a lot of it and recently released some. We do have version 5.3 coming out over the next probably week. And that has some more advanced auto updating options for the agents. So pretty excited about that. But mostly what we're looking to do is just continue to enhance the package now that it's kind of got all the core features in there. So that's probably the big news for now. I think we might be off for the rest of the summer for webinars, but we will be reaching out to all of you about giving you a t-shirt if you want one, and we'll get your size and where to send it to. And other than that, we thank you so much for coming today, and we hope you'll fill out our survey, which will pop up on the screen here in just a moment. And thank you so much, and see you soon.